with the correct referencing. Scholars may face various issues due to incorrect or inappropriate use of referencing style. And then I will list down some of these. On the right hand side of this table, what you would see is what should be the correct referencing that should be followed, and what does it portray, or how is it perceived within the academic community. So moving on to some of the points on the left hand side, the type of issues that scholars would face because of incorrect or inappropriate use of referencing style are unclear thinking, intellect laziness, or being ignorant. So what typically this means is, if either you do not know how to perform or use a particular referencing and to use it in the correct approach, or it's something that you are quite lazy or ignorant in order to use exactly the same syntax or to use in the correct referencing style of what is expected to be done by the scholar. Or it could be that you are even not aware of the correct referencing style to be used. The third is mix up of various style. For example, if you're writing your PhD thesis, and there are different shortcuts or approaches a scholar might take, and that these are something which should be avoided for. For example, in today's world, in a digital and internet world, the information is flooded on the internet. You can simply go to a Google Scholar. Within Google Scholar, there are different approaches that could be used for. I can quickly demonstrate to you about what I mean by this. Say, for example, I go to a Google Scholar. I search for any of this. Say, I'm just typing it. For example, of the very first one that I use here, if I click on this site, okay, it gives in various information. Okay, MLA, APA, Chicago. And what scholars might do is they can simply copy from here. They could copy from the second one. They could copy from any one of them. So this is what mixing would be. And but here it still have a clarity that scholars should use exactly from the second one, which includes about the APA. How it could be done, simply copy this, put it in your thesis. Now that's the easiest way to do. But having said that, if the article by itself uses a different referencing style, and if you have tried to use it, for example, if I open the first one, so one of the approaches that scholars could use it, they could go into a particular section, okay, of the references. They could simply do a copy and paste, something like this. They would say, oh, okay, this is something that I should use for. I could use it here. Now, if this is done, you see the difference between the first and second. If we are using an APA style, in the case the second one is wrong, there are specific methods by which it has to be used for. You can't just do a copy and paste from one place to the other. So mixing up of the referencing styles actually creates a lot of issues. It does not portray a good academic work by the scholars. So this is something which should be avoided for. It is liable for a desk reject by the top journals, and you must make sure that whatever work that you're doing should be of quality work. You must try to make sure that the efforts that you put in as part of your research, something similar, you should make sure that you do give due diligence with your research paper writing as well, every section for that matter. And if you do not follow the correct referencing style of what is expected by that particular journal, it would be desk rejected. I will show you some of these as well with respect to how do we move from one to the other. Using little or no citation, which could fail to demonstrate your writing as well as the thoughts. Okay, you understand what is little or no citations? Very, very few that you have indicated in for. Again, there are a lot of things which goes with the, I would strongly suggest with respect to the writing style of the author. In academic writing, whether you write your manuscript, your research paper, your thesis, or even your synopsis, or any proposal that you write for, it should reflect the kind of thought process of the researcher, and it should communicate with respect to the kind of depth and the width of knowledge that that exists for. So you should be in a position to demonstrate or portray some of these academic work. Your thesis guide will form an opinion of a non-scholarly writing. Okay, so be very, very clear and very specific before you send it to your guide or to the IRB or the research board. So you must make sure that correct referencing styles are being used for. Now, what will the correct referencing style reflect? That it has been thorough and rigorous work as part of your academic research. It does portray the understanding of the topic of the research. It would also build the credibility as a scholar. That means you as an individual, it will build that, yes, you are a credible scholar and that you have got that kind of knowledge. Your ability to synthesize knowledge by drawing appropriate ideas. There are, if I may digress a little bit from this subject, typically when you do a literature review, there are different approaches to be done as part of the literature. A literature review which is predominantly being used as part of your PhD thesis and which goes in as a separate chapter, or even as part of your research paper or a manuscript. Now, within that, you must do a synthesis rather than simply saying A said this or B said this or C said this. A synthesis of literature is definitely required, and using the correct referencing approach is what will actually portray about you as a scholar. Recognition of different point of views. It authenticates the originality of the source. It projects a high degree of maturity. I hope you all understand what is a nascent stage in a research, and when you are, you have graduated into a certain level, it does portray you as a research scholar. So you must portray all those by which you should use the synthesis, and it should get into in such a way that you're able to project yourself with the correct depth and width associated with your study. Using the extant literature that leads up to your study. Now, again, I would simply, fall back on the same point that I mentioned earlier. Within the literature review section that you have, you can't just say A said this, B said this, hence I'm saying this. It has to be something which should be concluded from the extant literature that exists, and it should build up on the body of knowledge. So that would again come with not only the author's writing style, but also the approach that has been used for and the kind of depth of projection of the knowledge that the author has gone through.